everyone, and welcome to the Waste World Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Gage Edwards, bringing you another session from WasteExpo 2024. This week, we're featuring the session, The Heart, Science, and Business of Sustainability, a fireside chat with Tara Hemmer, hosted by a recent podcast guest, Kristin Kinder. Tara is WM's Senior Vice President and WM's first Chief Sustainability Officer, with more than 25 years of experience in the industry. So listen in to this insightful conversation on why sustainability is good for business and business is good for sustainability. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Waste World Podcast on Spotify and other podcasting services, and check out the video version of each of our podcasts over on the WasteExpo YouTube page. Enjoy!
Thank you for joining us right after lunch. I appreciate all of you making time to be here. I'm Kristin Kinder. I'm WasteQuip's Vice President of Research and Waste Stream Sustainability. We make everything from toter carts to steel dumpsters, AMRUP trucks, and everything in between to collect and transport waste. I started our company sustainability program a few years ago and am on the Environmental Research and Education Foundation, fondly known as EREF's, Board of Directors. We are so lucky today to be joined by fellow EREF board member, Tara Hemmer. With Tara's schedule, we have about 45 minutes, and I have to be honest, I got a bit selfish with all the questions I wanted to ask her, so we may or may not have time for questions at the end, but I hope we have a chance to get to that. Today, we're gonna get deeper into the business of sustainability, the science of sustainability and our industry, and I also wanna touch on the heart of sustainability. My hope is that whether or not sustainability is currently in your title, that you start thinking about ways that we can be thinking about the people and planet in our business and in kind of the everyday happenings of what we do in business. We're gonna first start with getting to know Tara a little better. She's had a 25-year career in the industry that has really paralleled the history of the industry. She's seen it evolve from, truly just waste collection in the 90s to the early 2000s when sustainability was kind of an add-on or a nice to have, to today where sustainability is truly becoming integrated into business activities. As Waste Management's first Chief Sustainability Officer, she's responsible for growing sustainable service offerings, including recycling, renewable energy, and organics. And she oversees all environmental, social impact, and governance initiatives at the company. Some of her previous roles include Senior Vice President of Field Operations, which included collection, disposal, recycling, and landfills for the southern part of North America. She joined Waste Management in '99 and progressed through leadership roles, including Vice President of Disposal Operations, Area Vice President for the Greater Mid-Atlantic area, and SVP of Operations, Safety, and Environmental Compliance. Under her leadership, Waste Management has committed more than $2.5 billion, you've heard that correctly, to expanding recycling and renewable energy infrastructure from 2022 to 2026. This will enable Waste Management, or WM, to capture more materials for recycling and increase production of renewable energy at the landfills that they operate. Tara also serves on the EREF Board of Directors and has a Bachelor of Science in Engineering, Civil and Environmental Engineering from Cornell. That's a lot to keep track of. In case you didn't catch all of that, she has a serious engineering background. She's held many operational and business leadership roles, and she's key to Waste Management's growth strategy. Please join me in welcoming Tara Hemmer.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kristin, and thanks for wearing the green.
Yes, WM Green. So I like to start off interviews to really break down the wall between the interviewee and the audience. So we're gonna start with a lightning round where I'll ask you a couple questions and just say the first thing that comes to mind.
We may not want that.
I know, I hear there are important people in the audience. What's one word that someone who knows you really well would use to describe you?
I would say curious, because I am a learner. I love learning about people and just new topics generally.
Yeah, that's
So I would say curious.
Yes. Where is your happy place?
Wherever my people are, and my people are my husband, Joe, and my 2 kids, and just love spending time with them. But I also have a lake house now, so it's very serene. Helps me be grounded and calm.
Yeah. It's great to have a home that can be your
Exactly.
happy place. Yes. Now, this is a zinger. What's more important, innovation or behavior change?
Innovation. It is so hard to change behavior. I know that's a big topic when we talk about recycling. And innovation is just unlocking so many different opportunities. I think an example outside of our industry is if you look at what's happening with weight loss drugs like Ozempic, it's a great example of innovation really catapulting above behavior change.
Yeah. Well, and I'm excited to get more into the innovations that Waste Management is working on. How do you practice sustainability at home?
I think sustainability is such a big word for some people, but we just do little things like wash our clothes in cold water. I have solar panels on our house. Just little things can have a big impact.
Yeah.
And try and teach that to my kids.
And that's a good example too of the solar panels of innovation over behavior change, right? You make one switch and don't have to worry about it as much.
Absolutely.
Last question, what gives you hope about our future?
The 40 under 40 people, and we have some of them in the room. I think Heather Miller's in here from WM. And if you think about the next generation that's coming up, especially within our industry, they have so many fantastic ideas and a lot of energy around the space. And so that really gives me hope.
Yes. Lots of energy these days. And I guess speaking of that, I know how excited I was when I read that Waste Management had elevated the role of sustainability to a CSO level. And I can only imagine what that meant for you and personally and for the company. So before we get into any of the details, I want to know, like, when the ink was still drying on that contract, like, who is the first person you called to share the good news with?
Well, beyond my husband, the first person I called was my mom. And I have an incredible relationship with my mom. I did with both of my parents. My father passed away about 7 years ago. And they embedded in each of us, I have 2 sisters, a deep appreciation for sustainability. I like to joke that my sisters and I, we lived in a bottle bill state. And my dad, my dad's recycling facility. Like, we took all of the bottles back to the supermarket because he wanted his deposits back. That was for sure. But they built in all of us a deep appreciation for spending time outdoors, being in nature, and then also really learning about the environment. And that's what was always one of my passions, even though I was part of the business community, had an engineering background, but wanting to bring that back to the environment was important to me. And, my mom also helped raise 3 really powerful women in their own right. And I know she's very proud of me, and so is my dad, wherever he is right now.
Oh, I'm sure. Just that I commend you for finding a way to build your personal values and personal goals into, what you're doing every single day for a living. That's impressive. I talked a bit when I introduced you about what your role covers, but I want to get into a little bit more of really the expanse of what's under your responsibility.
So in simple terms, there's really 2 key areas that I'm focused on. And one is growing WM through sustainability, and the other is embedding sustainability into our business practices. And they're really related and complement one another. So we truly believe at WM we can have exponential growth if we leverage this moment we're in with our sustainability platform. It's at the heart of what we do. If you think about it, we are an environmental solutions company. I like to say that we make living in cities and communities possible through the work that we do each and every day. And so we have a great platform to build upon. And so you're seeing that with the announcements that we've made in renewable energy and recycling. Huge, huge investments that are going to transform our company and help unlock solutions for our customers. That's so important. But we can't do all of that if we don't have our own house in order. So we have to make sure that not just the sustainability team, the entirety of our 48,000 employees understands what sustainability is in their individual roles and the impact that they can have in, if you're a finance employee or if you're a driver or a mechanic, what does sustainability mean to you in your role and how can you impact our journey longer term? So those two things really do go together.
Yes. And you, I guess you have peers on the executive team at Waste Management. For example, Kelly Rooney, Waste Management's Chief People Officer, that I'm guessing you work with very closely for a lot of the initiatives you work on. Is there anything you can tell us about how you work together with them more?
Sure. So sustainability, it really goes across every aspect of our business. And on the people side, a great example is when we report on our sustainability goals, a lot of the things that we're reporting on are, of course, diversity metrics, turnover metrics, also voice of the employee metrics. And so we really work very closely on, first of all, figuring out what our goals should be, but then also what are the programs that we're going to build as a company to make sure we can deliver on those goals. So spending a lot of time, for example, Kelly spends a lot of time on what are some of the training platforms that we need to have in order to have a diverse and robust workforce. On the operations side, while I do have portions of operations under me on the recycling side and the renewable energy side, most of our operations are run through John Morris. So I work very closely with him. He has the landfill team under him. We focus a lot of the time on emissions and emissions measurement and management, and just getting people to understand how those dots connect and how they impact our business. Of course, Davina, she controls the money. And if you're investing $2.5 billion in sustainability investments, we need to make sure that we have the right structure to ensure that we're getting the appropriate return on our investments. Yeah. And so spend a lot of time there as well. And then, of course, there's a whole universe of reporting that's coming. And there's a lot of interconnectivity with the finance team. Those are a couple of examples.
No, those are great examples. And I think, to steal your phrase, sustainability is a team sport.
Absolutely.
And that is perfect way to describe it. You also have an operations and engineering background. How has that served you in this role?
So I have a background in engineering. That's what I got my undergraduate degree in, and I spent the first really 10 years of my career at WM in engineering roles. In New York City, I worked on very large infrastructure projects that, today we rail a fair amount of New York City's waste, which is a great sustainable transportation mode. And Rafa, one of our executives, is working very closely on how to leverage that more broadly longer term. But I like to say engineering degree, and I've been saying this to my 17-year-old son who's a junior in high school, an engineering degree really teaches you how to problem solve and how to unpack really complex things into smaller, more digestible parts. And I think that is something that can be translated to really any role. Yeah. And certainly when you think about business is problem solving. And so I had the great opportunity to move from an engineering role into an operations role and could use some of those skill sets.
Well, and it sounds like more and more people in a CSO type role are coming from either an operations or a business, side of the business. And moving into that a little, I was so impressed with how you got to celebrate Earth Day. And it was in a much more unconventional way than I think your average person. Like, you didn't spend Earth Day planting trees. Tell us a little bit more about how you celebrated Earth Day, I think.
So we had such a fantastic opportunity to celebrate Earth Day at the New York Stock Exchange, where we rang the closing bell. And you don't really ring the closing bell, you press a button, which Jim gave me the opportunity to do. So thank you for that, Jim. It was a fantastic day to really celebrate the WM brand and all of the work that our 48,000 employees do each and every day to put us in this position. And we also announced a partnership with Major League Baseball that same day. So WM is the partner for Major League Baseball for all sustainability services. And Lee Spivak, who's on our team, is going to be really working very closely with Major League Baseball on how to make them more sustainable, how to work with all 30 of the Major League Baseball clubs to find ways to make their operations more sustainable. It's a great example of how we're taking some of the work that we do elsewhere in our business, including our sponsorship of the Phoenix Open, and translating that into new business opportunities, really across the platform of customers that we have. So it was a great day, and it was a great day to share with a lot of my colleagues and peers.
Well, and I love that message that, thinking about the planet and people can and should exist in business, and there are ways for all of those to thrive. And I think that was such a creative way to bring attention to Earth Day. So getting a little more into, like we've touched on, your growth priorities for the company. WM's growth priorities consistently mention sustainability initiatives in the top priorities, and the more than $2.5 billion that you're investing in recycling and renewable energy. Before we get deeper into those, I guess I want to talk a little bit about really how you've ingrained sustainability into your business, because we talked about for a minute that it's important, but what are you doing to really get it in there?
The one thing that we take a step back and really try and drive with our employees is we're doing this for our customers. Yeah. Because our customers are increasingly seeking different types of services from us. And so it is about meeting the moment that they are at, and they're going to be at different stages of their journeys. Some are very much in their infancy, and some almost like have PhDs in sustainability and how to think about sustainable services. And that's something that our national accounts team works on more broadly. So we also need to do that same education with our own employees, because we need to recognize they're on their own journey too. And if they don't know what sustainability means to them or might mean to our customers, then we can't expect them to help us, grow the company. One of the things I always like to say is everyone goes to a backyard picnic or barbecue, and it's a great opportunity to share the work that WM does when you're in those environments. Because we all know, we work in this industry, most people have no idea what happens with their trash. They have no idea what happens with their recyclables. And so finding those opportunities to educate when you're out in your local community, incredibly important.
Yeah. Let's walk through how your top investments have, that are intended to minimize environmental impact and grow the business. When you look at that, when it comes to greenhouse gas emissions, WM's two biggest challenges are emissions from landfills and your fleet. And, landfills naturally produce methane as waste decomposes. I think there's still work to be done on the science, but we know that they're up there in terms of major sources of greenhouse gas emissions. And you're able to not only capture methane gas, but also create renewable energy that you're then, using to power communities or help fueling a portion of your heavy duty fleet, which is, I think, one of the largest, or if not the largest in the industry in North America. But really being able to take something that, is almost a challenge or a problem in one area and use it to displace a raw natural resource in another is a real win for the planet. And I wanted to get into a little more about how are these investments benefiting your business as well?
So we announced about a year ago 3 big ambitions, and it really is energy is renewable, materials are repurposed, and communities are thriving. And under energy is renewable, and you touched on it, our landfills do generate landfill gas. It's interesting, it's a byproduct of our core business. And we capture that landfill gas, and we, for the last 40 years, at many of our landfills, have been converting that to renewable electricity. There's a great opportunity for us that we're capitalizing on today to take that landfill gas and convert it to renewable natural gas, which can go directly into our trucks. And there's no greater circularity story than that. If you think about, yesterday's trash fueling the truck that shows up in your community tomorrow, that's a fantastic story. And most people have no idea that that's something that could happen each and every day. So the landfill gas that's generated, we need to be collecting more of it. And that's something that we're investing in. But we also know, when you think about the sustainability driver, but also the business driver, if we collect more of it, it can go into these renewable natural gas plants, generate more renewable natural gas, and also generate more revenue for WM. So it's a fantastic win-win story there. On the recycling side, material is repurposed. A lot of people don't know this, but we manage over 15 million tons of material each and every year that is recyclable. And the majority of that is in the traditional recycling space, but we also do a fair amount of composting. We have construction and demolition debris recycling that we do. And increasingly, our customers are coming to us for more of that each and every day. It's a huge business opportunity for us, and investing in new recycling facilities that we can automate so we make them more efficient. The material that we capture is cleaner, and there's a lot more capacity that can be unlocked to really help CPG companies that are looking to get that material back. So 2 great examples of has a clear sustainability benefit, but also a very clear business impact for WM.
Yes. And kind of on the customer side, the EPA has classified natural gas from landfills as renewable, but your average person might not understand it that way. What is WM doing to educate the public on, the nuances of landfill gas emissions and some of the benefits that, in the way that you're thinking about it?
I think most people have no idea what renewable natural gas is. They don't know that landfill gas can generate renewable natural gas. And renewable natural gas is just a complicated term for basically taking landfill gas that's 50% methane and 50% CO2, and taking that methane portion and cleaning it so we can go directly into the pipeline. And we're able to allocate that to our fleet. One of the things we're trying to do is share more videos about the process so people can see what happens. We do have some branding on our trucks about how that fuel is allocated from our landfills, which is important, and finding ways to bring people into our sites in a meaningful way so that they can see what happens. Our landfills are truly engineering marvels, and anybody who's visited one really gets that, and they get how we're a world-class operator.
Yeah, that is a great segue into my question on recycling. So your priorities on recycling facility automation, and that's, key to the growth. I got to do a tour of one of them, and I was just blown away. I have to say, one of my favorite responsibilities I've had in my career was leading tours at one of WM's recycling facilities, like 10 plus years ago. And I loved looking at how all the equipment fit together and how everything worked and the engineering of it. And at that time, we were talking about how recycling facilities had to respond to a material stream. So for example, cardboard boxes, they were built to process a moving box, not a personal box at home. Right. And there was a lot of talk about challenges with that. And I was blown away by the new automation that I saw, because I saw how it could respond to today's material stream, but also the material streams of tomorrow. And there was so much more flexibility and modularity there. So yeah, I guess tell us a little more about how WM's thinking about the future of recycling.
When we think about the future of recycling, it really is about integrating a whole host of different stakeholders. So we have to think about the brands and the types of products that they're going to be putting on shelves, not just today, but in the future. So we need the ability to adapt our facilities to respond to that. We know that packaging is going to change over time. This is an example I've used internally with the team, but I was at a meeting where we all think about our laundry detergent containers and, the Tide, sort of rigid container jug. And so many of those organizations are under a lot of pressure now to make changes to their packaging. And Tide has developed this, it's a tile that has the detergent in it. It's in a cardboard box and no plastic. So that gives an example of, in a very quick period of time, we could move from perhaps having plastic jugs to more cardboard. We know that packaging is going to evolve, and it might evolve pretty rapidly over time. So our systems need to be able to adapt to that. That's one of the reasons why, when you look at our facilities, optical sorters, they are wonderful shapeshifters, because you can program them to look for any number of things. They can be programmed to look for paper, for cardboard, for plastic, any type of plastic, and also film in the future. So just by having that as part of our systems, we can be a lot more nimble. And then, of course, if you look at it, we are under a lot of pressure when you think about the types of roles that traditionally had been in our recycling facilities. Very hard to fill sorter roles longer term, and it's a very hard job. I've done it. Anybody else who's done it, you know it's difficult. So if we can find ways to find other roles for those people and potentially upskill them to do higher touch roles in our recycling facilities, and at the same time, we're able to make these facilities much more productive through the automation investments that we have. Great examples of how you can pull all of that together into a broader business opportunity.
Well, I was just amazed at, truly. And you've sorted. That's very
I have sorted.
picked on the line. What are the most...
I don't know that I'm a good sorter, though.
Your picks per minute or
Yes.
something weren't quite high enough.
I didn't get a good grade.
Yeah. What are the most important ways that our industry, the waste industry, can really help others become more sustainable?
So our advisory services group, I mentioned this earlier, Lee Spivak leads it on the sports side, but we've had a group within WM called Sustainability and Environmental Solutions for over 15 years. And if you think about it, our customers are coming to us because they want solutions. Many of them want to figure out ways to waste less material, or the material that they might have to throw out, how can they move it into a more circular economy? So we have people who show up to work each and every day, not at a WM location, but at a customer's location. Okay. Could be a large automotive manufacturing facility. It could be a large refinery. And what they do is they help our customers find different solutions for their waste streams and work hand in hand with them on how to do that. That is an area of our business that's growing quite significantly because there's a lot more focus by our customers on, I need help, I need an expert, and they look to WM as an expert in the space for all material types, not just, trash or recycling, but even more complex material types like special waste and emerging materials that are now in focus, like textiles.
Yes. I think our industry is pivotal. You hear the term circular economy, and I hope that there becomes an increasing awareness that how important our industry is to circular economy. I mean, you cannot have circular economy without us. So I'm glad you guys are expanding and set up to help customers with that. And I'm glad you mentioned textiles because you and I immediately bonded over the Trash and Show, which for anyone in the audience who's not familiar, we're gonna have a Trash and Show tomorrow at 12:30 at the EREF booth in the exhibit hall. But it's all about, we've got 17 designers who are bringing in designs made out of traditionally wasted materials. And it's a really wonderful celebration of creativity, but there's a lot more to it than that. So what excites you about the Trash and Show so much?
To me, it's the art of the possible. Yes. I mean, is it realistic that we're all going to be wearing clothes made out of trash? Probably not. But I do think it brings to life the creativity of young people, candidly. I mean, they come up with fantastic ideas to repurpose materials that we've never thought of. And it's a great platform for that. And the creativity that abounds, it just astounds me. So that's one of the things that's fantastic from my vantage point.
Well, and I think textiles are the fastest growing waste stream in the US, possibly outpacing plastic. So in terms of, places that our industry can focus on creativity and solutions, I think it's a really important one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You've talked about some of the most important qualities in a CSO are, being an educator, an integrator, an influencer. We've talked a lot about, integrating into the business, but another quality people really admire about you is being a strategic thinker and really the ability to find a win for all parties. And first, I want to commend you on that. I think that's a really impressive thing to be able to do. And I want to highlight how important, being able to view multiple trade-offs and benefits and kind of hold all those in the same thought is for sustainability in business. So for those of us, aspiring or continuing to aspire to think about in a strategic way, how do you look for a win for multiple stakeholders?
I don't really think about things in trade-offs because I really do think that you can usually find a path to a win. And so an example that I have within the last 18 months of something that I'm most proud of that WM was able to do is work around our landfills. And so in the last year, we reduced our landfill emissions by 10%, which had never been done before, ever. And it was because we were able to pull together a fantastic team that we have at WM, our landfill group, and really align around looking at our renewable energy investments. We're going to be investing in these renewable natural gas facilities. And where we're investing, if we can collect more landfill gas from those locations, we can reduce our emissions and we can generate more revenue for WM. But it doesn't happen overnight, and there's always going to be challenges and obstacles. So what are some of the things that we need to tackle in order to do that? And so the team came up with a really amazing platform where they do scenario planning on what investments they can make at each landfill and what benefit, both environmentally and also economically, can be driven by that investment. And it's really galvanized the landfill team around driving impacts in both places. And this is something that, Jim Fish has been very clear about, and I believe it as well. Sustainability isn't just about the environment. You can have economic impact and environmental benefit, and they go hand in hand.
Yes. Going with that, you got to interview Indra Nooyi, the former CEO of PepsiCo. She built such a legacy at Pepsi for what she called performance with purpose. And that platform was all about social good and building the business and doing those things hand in hand. She's also a strong proponent of getting more women into the economy and in business. And she really wants to build, she's talked about how to get more women into business and in a certain industry, we need to have the support systems for that. So I'm curious, like, what, in your view, what systems we need to, for women in our industry to feel like they can be part of the industry and build families if they choose, that all the options are available.
So first, having the opportunity to interview Indra was the ultimate fangirl.
Yes, I was fangirling for you.
And I had the opportunity to hear her speak. It was probably 20 years earlier, and I remember almost every aspect of her speech. And she spoke even then about a lot of these concepts. And really the fact that this is an area where there are trade-offs. As a woman, and I'm also a mom, and she's a mom, I remember her talking about her daughter and how she couldn't always physically be there for her, but finding ways to make sure that she was always emotionally there for her kids. And that really stuck with me. But I'm also struck by the fact that for women, there are more off-ramps for women. If you think about it, biologically, we have children, and we have to heal when we have children. That's just the reality of it. Women are much more likely to care for aging parents. And so there are these off-ramps, but we have to make sure that we then have on-ramps for them to come back into the workforce and make sure that they can still have thriving careers. And I think that this is something that WM is doing well. We're finding opportunities to bring WM into traditional and non-traditional roles. We do a lot of work with women in trucking, having women in operating roles. That's a big goal for WM. And, we're moving the needle each and every day. I think what's important is just to understand that everyone has a role to play in doing this. And I had the opportunity in my career to have many allies. I've also had mentors and sponsors, and some of them are in the room here today. And that's a role that anybody can play for women that are coming up in their career. It's something that I know I continue to do, and I know a lot of my male counterparts on the SLT absolutely do. One of them in particular, Jim, I think Jim is in here. He was a huge champion of me early in my career. And I think the other thing is women often have to be pulled up. They may not raise their hands. They may not have think they have all the qualifications for a role. So you really need to look for the women out there that are hidden gems and make sure that they're pulled up so they reach their maximum potential.
Yeah. And one of my favorite messages you've shared too is, wanting to be a great role model for your daughter, but wanting to be as much of a role model for your son. And I think, you've just shared great examples of how we can all help lift women up in the industry. I want to close out with just a couple personal questions, and then we might have time for like one audience question. What is the best advice you've ever received?
Be true to yourself. Be true to yourself. It's something that I try to do. I don't always succeed, but I sort of come back to that as my North Star.
Yes. The converse of that, what is the worst career advice you've ever, or any advice, I guess, that you've ever received?
So the one that comes to mind is somebody told me, don't go to work for WM. That's a bad idea. And that was the best decision I ever made.
Yeah.
And it's transformed my life. WM is such a great company to work for, and grateful that I didn't listen to that piece of advice.
I did not get that piece of advice, but I also started my career at Waste Management, and I would wholeheartedly agree. It was by accident, but it was the best accident I've fallen into. And just being able to see how things are much more nuanced than they seem and much more complicated than they seem, and getting just such an exposure to how things actually work when it comes to
I was
waste.
just talking to somebody earlier. Our industry is so fascinating, and once you find it, people generally don't leave it.
Yes. Yeah. That's I find most of us have a very interesting story of how we kind of fell into it, and then but the theme is most of us are still here. And,
Absolutely.
And don't
Absolutely.
leave. If you could create a new law that everybody had to follow, what would it be?
Oh, okay. So I do have to give Heather Miller and I were talking about this yesterday, and it really would be, and there probably is a law that exists, but it's not enforced, is no littering. It's just extremely disrespectful. And you go to different countries, they're so incredibly clean. And it's a simple act that has really dramatic consequences for how our communities look.
Yeah.
So don't litter. Don't be a litter pig.
Don't be a litter bug. And finally, what moment from your professional career would you most want to relive, and why?
So many of us get to do so many fantastic things, like going to the New York Stock Exchange or interviewing Indra Nooyi. And it's not that I don't want to relive these moments because they were tragedies. And I was in New York City working for WM during 9/11. Yeah. I've been through countless hurricanes with the company and responses to those, Hurricane Sandy in New York and Hurricane Harvey as an example. What I'm struck by, though, the moments that I have the most pride from are how we responded as a company in those moments, and how our WM team came together as a family. Yeah. So I would say it's not really I don't want to relive those tragic moments, but this sort of the secret sauce of WM is in how we treat one another, and especially how we rise to the occasion in times of struggle.
Yeah, so reliving the feeling of camaraderie and accomplishing something against all odds and all of that. Well, thank you so much. I think we have time for maybe one, I don't know if we have time for maybe one audience question. Is there any?
Or not?
Well, we'll come find you.
Random question at a high level. What has been the best lesson learned or the hardest thing when acquiring companies and trying to make that cultural change towards your sustainability goals?
Sure. And tell me your name.
Dan.
Dan. Nice to meet you, Dan. Thanks for the question. Whenever you're acquiring a company, it's absolutely a different culture from WM's culture. And so first of all, you have to recognize what is that other company's culture so that you can determine really where are you going to come at it from? What is important to the team that's there? How do you get them to really buy in to WM's culture shift? And then also really understanding that you can't do it overnight. If you try and do it overnight, it's going to be a radical failure, hot mess situation. And we've certainly had our fair share of those. But just sort of understanding what motivates people and then trying to shift over time. You're welcome. Well, thank you, Kristin.
Thank
appreciate
you so
you
much.
and appreciate how great you
Yes.
were. Thank you.
Hey listeners, WasteExpo is back and bigger than ever, happening May 5th through May 8th in Las Vegas. Join the ultimate event for waste and recycling professionals to connect with industry leaders, explore the latest innovations, and take your business to the next level. And here's some holiday cheer. Kick off the new year by investing in your success with 25% off your registration. Register today at wasteexpo.com. That's WasteExpo.com and save 25% with code HLDY252. That code again is HLDY252. Don't wait, this offer ends January 10th. So register today and I'll see you at WasteExpo 2025.